Welcome, Christine.
Thank you, Pastor Greg.
I want to let everybody know that my friend Christine Sockowitz is joining me today. She's a grant writer and has helped me with a number of our grants that we've written recently. And also, she's been helping a number of our churches and organizations all over the country write successful grants. And so there's been a lot of interest in this in recent months since we've been talking about that. And so I thought, let's have a conversation about how churches can get started writing grants. And so Christine has so graciously joined us today to talk about that. So thank you, Christine.
It's my pleasure. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm really happy to be here today for this conversation. And I'm excited that so many churches are interested in grants at this time.
They are. And I think it's at this time, one of the streams of income that a lot of churches may not be thinking about. But as we move further into the future, I think churches are going to have to start thinking about multiple income streams.
Yes.
And I think grants are one of the low-hanging fruit, really.
Mm-hmm. They can be. They can be if you take the time to build the proper foundation and just put a lot of consistency and perseverance into your efforts. It can develop into another income stream.
When you say build the proper foundation, what do you mean by that?
That's a great question. When I think about churches needing to build a proper foundation for grants, I really have in mind learning to think like a funder thinks. And so that just means translating all of the church speak that most of us have grown up with, ministry terms and things of that nature, into language that a funder will understand and can appreciate. So it's kind of learning to speak a different language, if you will. It's not hiding our faith. Sometimes it is tailoring the language differently so that the funder understands what we mean.
Yeah, we could talk about, hey, we want kids to get saved. But when we were writing some of our grant proposals for our ministry here, we didn't put things in those terms. We put things in terms of what they are looking for, and we expect that kids will be born again and find Christ. But sometimes the grants want to hear things in their language. And I agree with you on that. Our spiritual enthusiasm is good, but they may not share that spiritual enthusiasm. They may, but they may not. And I think that's very, very wise to think about that.
The funders will communicate. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Pastor Greg.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say the funders will communicate what it is that they're interested in funding. And so that's part of the homework of the church that's looking for grants, is to find out what the funder wants to fund. So just because you find a funder that has made grants to other faith-based organizations, that doesn't necessarily mean that your church is going to be a good fit for them. So doing a little digging and finding out if they have a website, that's super helpful. A lot of them don't. But if they do, you can find out what the cause areas are that they're passionate about, because funders view grants as a strategic investment to further their own missions. They're not so much interested in helping us further our mission, except where those intersect. And so that's really a key component in understanding how to approach grants. So if a funder wants to fund work with the homeless or work with disabled adults, and you're wanting to fund early childhood education, even though they may be faith friendly and you're a church, that doesn't mean that there's a good fit there. So it's about finding the funders that are funding the work that you're already doing. So if you have an early childhood education program and a food pantry, it's finding funders who want to fund food insecurity and, helping people in poverty and education for little ones.
That's so very well put. You're not trying to hide what you do. You're trying to find what we share.
Yeah, looking for that common ground.
Yeah, linking arms with them because they care about what we care about. We just have to find out what those things are, and
Hmm.
those are the things that they want to pay for. I think that's very good. And then, I've also been thinking there are a lot of churches that may need to clean up their accounting records,
Mm-hmm.
um, because the grants will ask them for balance sheet and income statement. They
Yes.
want to know how they're spending their money, what their budgets are,
Hmm.
and they may not even have a budget.
Mm.
So,
Now
and they
is the
should have
time.
it anyway. Yeah, this would be a great time to do that and just make sure that it all looks clean. If
Hmm.
they've had an audit, that's even better.
Even
Audited
better.
statements are really good.
Yes, or at least reviewed statements if audited
Hmm.
statements are outside of the scope of the budget, following generally accepted accounting principles and things like that. Making sure you can produce a clean budget and financial statements is very important. And if you're not there yet, that's okay. But now is the time to do that before you start looking for grants.
Yeah, I agree. Because if it looks like the church finances are on a napkin, they're
Mhm.
probably not going to get they're not
Yes,
going to get any money
that's very
because it's an
true.
investment.
Right. They want to know
They're
that.
thinking
Mhm.
they're thinking like a capital investor. If I put this money in your organization, am I going to get out of it what I want to see happen?
That's exactly right, Pastor Greg. And just like you wouldn't go to a bank for a loan with all of your information written on the back of a napkin,
Hmm.
it's the same thing with grants. Funders need to know that churches can responsibly handle the funds, that they can
Hmm.
tag expenses, and that they can show, that they've spent the money the way that it was supposed to be spent, and that they have achieved the outcomes that they said they were going to. So that's very important. And that brings us to another really foundational piece for churches who have not started applying for grants yet but want to. And that's thinking of getting super clear on who in the community we're serving, how we're serving them, why we're serving them the way that they are, and starting to track some data points. Like, for instance, if we have a food pantry, the funders will want to see some community-based data that shows, what's the poverty rate in your county? Why are you having a food pantry?
Hmm.
Who are the people that are coming to you? They may want some ethnic data. They'll want to know, what's the income rate or the poverty rate in your county, and things that you can actually, like, hard and fast facts that you can put in your grant application to show there's an actual community need in this area. This is why we chose to meet it. This is who we're serving. This is how we're serving them. The how would be maybe we have a food pantry that's open twice a month, run by 40 volunteers. We get our food from the local food bank. We distribute it
Hmm.
this way. We track who comes to us. Maybe you only track the number of clients served, and that's okay. But whatever you track, it's time to start really making sure that you have numbers starting from now if you don't have any, so that when you're ready to start applying for grants, you can at least say over the last 6 months or, in the past year, these are the results of the program that we did. So just being really clear on what are the needs in the community and having a thoughtful approach to why you're doing what you're doing to serve them. And, even though at the church side of things, that may all be driven by a heart to see people come to Christ. If you're meeting tangible community needs, you can word your application in such a way that even funders who aren't necessarily faith friendly will see the numbers and the impact that you're making in your community. And you will still be able to apply for funding, even from funders who are not necessarily happy about funding Christian organizations. If you can say there's a real need in our community, there's a lot of youth delinquency. We started this mentoring program. We've helped 35 youth. Their grades have improved, and they've reported less whatever problems. Those are real things that you can report on that you've had success in, and you don't have to use overly religious wording to be able to describe them. So that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
We're not, it's not a matter of saying you're something that you're not, or you still,
Mm-hmm.
in the grant application, you would still have your church mission statement. I mean, you could still show that you are a church and that's why you exist. But when you're talking about the program that you're doing, which is grant funder for the ministry, funder speak, you can show that you're actually having an outcome that the funders will be able to see and appreciate. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make perfect sense. And you're really making a case when you're writing the grant. You're you're telling stories. It needs to be very motivational, right?
Yes, I'm so glad you said stories too, because
Yeah.
stories of impact should be balanced. Like the numbers, the hard data should be balanced with a couple stories of like, the people that you're actually touching and helping. That makes a much more powerful application when you actually can mix in some stories.
Yeah, I think that stories are incredibly powerful for
Hmm.
fundraising
Hmm.
and for engaging donors. And why would it not also impact um, you know uh, endowments and trusts and things like that? I think that's true. If a church wanted to get started
Hmm.
looking for grants, where would they find them?
That's a great question. You can get a certain amount of success with doing a Google search. You can search for grants that are specific to your city and to your
Mm-hmm.
county,
Mm-hmm.
for your state. If you're in Indiana, you can apply for the Center for Congregations grant for churches for a new project, which is that's a wonderful resource.
Oh yeah.
I have a list on my website of helpful resources and places where different grants can be found that has a whole list of things on there. So just searching is good. And there are also, the next level up from that is some paid portals. There's Foundation Directory Online, Grant Station, different things like that that you can pay for like a monthly subscription and then do some further digging that way. But you can certainly find some things just from searching on the internet.
And if somebody, let's say a church was working with you,
Hmm.
you are also finding out and learning. You have connections where you can learn about where these grants are. You know what to look for. So you could direct
Hmm.
them to that or call them and say, hey, I think there's something that would work for you.
Yes, and that's actually one of the service packages that I offer that churches have been really enjoying taking advantage of lately,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Mm-hmm.
just a research package and then a report on the research, which is really helpful for churches who want to get started with grants but may not have the funding to support ongoing, monthly grant support. So they can hire a grant consultant to do a block of research for them and then provide them with a report, and then they can take it and run with it if they have a volunteer or a staff member who has the bandwidth to take on grants. And that way they didn't have to pay for a professional portal membership, but they have the results that they can use for the next,
Yeah.
6 months to a year to start applying for grants.
Yeah, I think about too when churches are applying for grants, they're going to
Hmm.
have to home in on, like you say, what that particular organization wants to fund.
Hmm.
When they do, oftentimes they'll put out some kind of a request for proposal or an
Yes.
RFP. Can you
Hmm.
tell us a little bit about how that works and what the church might want to do with regard to that?
That's a great question. So you can actually set up a Google alert that will let you know if there's something that you're looking for. Like, I have a whole string of them that I've got set up. But if you're looking for grant funding for, early childhood education or, whatever it is that your ministry is that you're wanting to fund, you can set up a Google alert for your area. And then anytime there's anything on the internet about that, it'll send you, an alert that you can look into that. So that's a really helpful tool to find
Hmm.
out about opportunities. Also, when you have a list of funders, like if you have done some grant prospecting and you have a list of funders that you want to keep an eye on, setting reminders for yourself to check their websites regularly or to sign up for their newsletters or emails, that's really helpful too, because then you'll be on their list when they're sending out requests for proposals. So if you have a funder that you know has given money to another church, maybe in the same area that you're interested in funding for, that would be a great one to somehow get on their list so that they're sending you stuff.
That's excellent. And when you get that request for proposal,
Hmm.
there's language in there that's very specific. And when we were working together, we tried to make sure that the language in our proposal or our proposal
Uh-huh.
mirrored the language in the request for proposal.
Hmm.
So we speak back to that organization what they're speaking to us to let them know we understand what you're asking for
Hmm.
and we intend to do what you're asking for, and this is how.
Yep, that's a very good strategy. And that's important to understand that it's not their language isn't just there because it's nice ideas to them. I mean, that they're saying exactly what they're wanting from you. And so that's a really good technique is to say, take their words. You can even slightly reword it, but just to give them back what they've given to you and say, like you said, we get it. And this is our plan to do what you're wanting us to do.
If they had some kind of a secure AI tool,
Hmm.
like let's say a secure co-pilot, like I have here,
Hmm.
they could take the request for proposal and they could take their proposal and put them in there, both
Hmm.
documents, and
Hmm.
ask the AI tool to tell them if what is in the RFP is reflected well in their document.
Yes, that is a very
Yeah,
good use of AI technology for grants.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they'd have to be careful
Hmm.
not to put their private organizational data up on public AI, but if they had a
Hmm.
private way to do it,
Hmm.
I think that could be a really very efficient way of just scanning through their document and making sure that it's saying back what you want to say back.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
asking it to score it from a reviewer standpoint, that can be very helpful as well.
Oh, what would that be? Like the reviewer at the organization
Hmm.
itself?
Hmm.
That's an interesting idea.
Hmm.
That's a
You
very good idea.
Yeah, you don't have to accept its answer that it gives you,
Yeah,
AI's answer as the final answer. You can say, "Okay, thanks. Now please score this as
right.
if you were a reviewer at that foundation and make any necessary changes or edits to strengthen it, and it will work on its work for you."
When I was writing one of the grants that you and I were working on, and you had helped me with, there was one paragraph. I had to get it down into 8 pages,
Hmm.
and the body of the proposal, and there were some paragraphs I thought were a little big, so I thought I'm going to take this paragraph, I'm going to upload it into AI, and I'm
Hmm.
going to tell it I want you to shrink this 20% without
Hmm.
losing any essential meaning or content.
Hmm.
And it did it literally in seconds.
Yes.
So then I could read it, and I thought, oh wow, that really did work.
Yes.
And
It
then I could send it
literally,
in.
yes, it can do in seconds what it would take us an hour to sit there and do ourselves.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes, now my sons are in college and they're telling me, Dad, you need to be careful with AI because not only because of what, can happen, but also they said there's some things that are real dead giveaways that you're using AI, like the dashes and things like that. So,
That is true. And I asked AI to give me a list of instructions for my custom GPTs that I create for grant writing so that it will not trip the AI red flag triggers. And so AI itself can tell you what are the triggers that AI is looking for, and then it can tailor its writing to not trip those triggers.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mhm.
That's interesting.
So that's one of the things I've just recently gotten a Chat GPT professional certification because I feel like AI technology can be super useful for churches who can't afford ongoing grant support. So one of the
Hmm.
things I do is create custom GPTs for churches so that they can do their own grant writing with this. And that's one of the ways, that's one of the
Oh,
instruction sets I build in is so that it won't trip the AI red flag triggers. It's really kind of fun.
that's fascinating. So you have multiple tools that you've built out
Yes.
to help churches. So they might say, well, we're not sure if we can afford a grant writer for all these grants, but we could write them ourselves, but we're not quite sure how. And you
Hmm.
could help get them set up.
Yes. Yes. And AI can be a very powerful tool that way when responsibly used, like you were talking about. And, I'm in a group of my mentors that has ongoing AI technology calls where we talk about the ethics of AI and, how we can best use it to help our clients further their missions. And so it's kind of a fun emerging field to stay on top of and just know how to use it. There are some ways right now that it just doesn't work well, and doing like
Yeah.
letting it do all your research for you and not checking
Yeah.
up on the citations. That's not a responsible way to use AI right now. But giving it super clear instructions.
Hmm.
And feeding it a knowledge base of stuff about your church, like if you have any past grants or just all the information about your church so that it knows and understands who you are and what you're doing, and giving it super clear instructions so that when it answers grant questions for you, it's doing it within a parameter that's already been established. And then it can be a very useful tool and it can be a huge time saver, which is very important for every pastor that I know because
Yeah.
nobody that I've talked to has, 10 extra hours a week that they really can dedicate to working on grant applications.
Yeah. It can be quite a lot of work.
Hmm.
And you and I both know that I've discovered that it can be quite a lot of work, even with the tools.
Yes, and after the fact
Yeah.
too. I mean, if you're applying for funding from any kind of government entity, even if that's just county, and some foundation grants too, there will be reporting requirements, and some of them
Hmm.
can be kind of cumbersome. So it's good to know, like you said earlier, Pastor Greg, when that request for proposals or notice of funding announcement comes out, read it like four times. So that you know
Oh, yeah.
exactly what they are expecting of you before, during, and after funding.
Yeah. I took those RFPs with a highlighter and a pen,
Hmm.
and I went through them. I went through them. I went through them again multiple times. And then
Hmm.
after we had everything ready, I read them again. And I still have them. I have like an expandable file with all of my work from these grants. And even the contracts that I signed later when
Hmm.
they said, hey, congratulations, you've been approved. Now you've got a contract to sign. So I kept the contract
Hmm.
and keep the budgets. I keep everything so that I can make sure that I'm reviewing all that. Because in a way, you kind of have to have someone be a project manager with that grant once you've
Yes.
received it.
Yes. And
Maybe you could elaborate on that.
well, depending on the size of the project and the scope of the
Hmm.
project, ideally more than one person. I mean, you've got to have somebody in the finance department who is, knowing
Hmm.
what's going on and really tagging expenses and keeping up with things so that you can produce reports at the end that show exactly how the money was spent. And having somebody who's actually overseeing the project. Like for instance, if you're applying for the nonprofit security grant funding from FEMA,
Yeah.
you need to have an actual project manager who's, the boots on the ground person who's meeting with the contractors and everything. And it really, I think thinking about grants in terms of how big is this project and do we have the internal capacity right now to manage this? A very simple grant to maybe like a family foundation involves you find out about them, you write them a grant proposal letter saying this is what we do. We'd like, to request $10,000 to do it. They get the letter, they say, sure, they send you a check, and they say at the end of a year, we would like a 1-page report on what you did, and then you send it and it's done. That's like the easiest scenario. But at the other end of that, there's, federal grants, including the nonprofit security grant that wants, quarterly fiscal reports and progress reports. And, you have to sign 8 pages of contracts, and, you have to stay super on top of things to make sure you're in compliance with federal procurement policies and, all of the stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
between grant A and grant B here, there's a vast, array. There's a lot of things can go wrong if you're at the heavy end of requirements like the FEMA grant. And you need to go into that with your eyes open and just say, do I have the team around me right now that can support this? And if not, then who can I bring alongside to help me with that?
We had a very interesting conversation even here within the last month, because there was another grant opportunity that was put out, an RFP. And I looked at it and I thought, well, we've already got a number of grants going. I don't really know that we need to apply for this one, because I don't think I have the bandwidth to
Mm,
do it and do it well when I have all these others that I'm trying to manage on top of everything else, right?
hmm Pastor
And
Greg, that's
so
so wise.
I had a conversation with all the other directors and I said, all right, I'm feeling confident that we're starting to get the hang of the grant writing, and I can help you write the grant. I
Hmm.
can help you tag things financially, but I
Hmm.
do not want to be the project manager on another grant.
Hmm.
Is anyone here interested in this grant? And everyone said, I do not personally have the bandwidth to take that on right now, because I have, these 5 things or these 10 things or these major projects. And I said, well, then I think wisdom would say that we
Hmm.
pass on this one. There will be more.
Hmm. I really love that you brought that up, because the concept and the temptation to just chase money is a real
Yeah.
thing. And you really need to consider the health of the organization and the people in it when you're looking at grants. Grants are not a last-ditch bailout effort. They shouldn't be a huge part of a church's operating budget. They can
Hmm.
be another stream of income, but they should not be the church's master. I mean, that it should be thoughtfully and prayerfully decided what opportunities you select to pursue. And, and those should be ones that you can pursue while staying sane, healthy, and happy.
That's very interesting. I'd be interested to talk to you about that a little bit, because I've thought about this. Sometimes a grant can drive vision that's foreign to your organization.
That's known as mission drift in the grant world, and it's something to
Yeah.
be guarded against.
Yeah. So you say, oh, hey, we could have all this money to work with. And it really is not coming from your vision, like
Hmm.
funding your vision, a God given vision. Instead, it's kind of bringing something in from somewhere else, someone else's idea or vision.
Hmm.
And thankfully, the grants that we have applied for here actually, I think, are an answer to prayer. And the Lord's reminded me of that there are several things I was praying for very specifically, and never in my wildest imagination thought there would be a grant for that or that anything would come up.
Wow,
And then these grants came up, and I thought, well, that's exactly what I've been praying for.
that's
so,
incredible.
so, the fact that we applied for those, it works with
Hmm.
the organization rather than inserting into the organization something that is really foreign to its culture or its vision.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, if you found a grant tomorrow that says, we'll give you $10,000 for serving the homeless, and the church doesn't serve the homeless, and they're like, hey, we can get $10,000 if we just,
Yeah.
start a homeless program in the next 2 weeks. I mean, that's not, That's not the
Yeah,
situation that you're wanting.
it feels really kind of disingenuous, doesn't it?
Well,
It's saying,
it weakens the overall mission
hmm
if you allow too many of those things to happen. And then you just have this, you've become this octopus, instead of having the laser focus and
yeah,
doing the one thing well that you do. Um, Not that a church has just one ministry, but you know what I'm saying. Just,
yeah,
you already know what it is that you're doing
yeah,
and that God's called you to do. Not that you can't add to that, but the decision to add to that needs to come first, so that the tail's not wagging the dog. You hear from
yep.
God, you decide what you're doing, you do that, and then you find funding for it, not you find out a bunch of funding and start doing a bunch of different things.
Yeah, and if you don't do what you say you're going to do, if you don't meet the contract, a lot of these, you have to give the money back.
It's true. That can
And
happen.
if you sign a contract and you spend the money on things that aren't right, you've got to come up with that money to give it back. It's a very serious thing. I think
Hmm.
people should take it seriously. And also, it kind of seems like to me that if you were going to do something that you didn't have, like you mentioned, like, hey, they're going to give us $10,000 to do a homeless ministry. We don't have one.
Hmm.
So we're just going to kind of apply for this and then just kind of wing it. Like we're
Hmm.
going to just kind of throw something together that kind of fits. And then it's not really, I feel like one, you would jeopardize your ability to get more
Hmm.
grants because it would show that you don't operate with integrity. But I also think it would be very possibly wasteful of that resource because it wouldn't be done well.
Hmm. I agree. And if you were thinking about applying to that funder again, you already have sent in a poorly crafted application.
Oh, yeah.
So, that's not good either.
Yeah, and then I just think I've been meditating a lot lately on First Timothy, where Paul says you have to have, as a minister, a good reputation with outsiders,
Hmm.
and that you do what you say you're going to do.
Hmm.
And I think that's very, very important. I just wonder when it comes to these grants, um, are there any other tips, things that you think that people might want to know about that maybe they might not know about, especially if they're brand new?
I think that it's really helpful for churches of all sizes to know that there are different levels of ways that you can work with a grant professional.
Hmm
Um, you don't have to hire somebody on a monthly retainer for a year to get help with grants. Like you can start in a smaller way. And so
hmm
I think that could be helpful for churches to know. Like many professionals would be willing to work with you where you are just to help you take the next step to move towards having an established grant pipeline. It
hmm
also can be helpful to think just to get your feet wet, applying for something manageable and very user friendly, like the Center for Congregations Resource Grant that you can do without outside help. That's a great way to get started. And then once you have that and have completed a full cycle where you've done your project and closed out the
hmm
grant, then you can say, we have handled grant funding. Last year we got $25,000 matching grant to do this project and we did it. So that lends to your credibility and that helps, anything like that you've done in the past, excuse me, helps you get more funding in the future. So,
If
so
it,
knowing you can start small, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Yeah, knowing that you can start small, like it's not an all or nothing thing. Like you don't have to, like get on the freeway immediately.
If they wanted to do like one of those Center for Congregations grants, let's say
Hmm.
the resource grant,
Hmm.
that resource grant says, if correct me if I'm wrong, if if you will raise up to 25,000, we will match it. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's the current amount.
So that would be 50,000?
I think it may be like the total is 25 and they do have,
Okay.
I actually would need to look on their website
So
and
it would
see.
be half of 25,000 then.
It's either half of 25 or it's 50 and they do half and
Oh,
you do
okay.
half. Yeah.
And it's for a goal, but the goals are defined in there. So they
It's for
can't use it
it's
for operations.
that's right. It's for a new resource to help you meet your mission somehow.
So let me ask this question. Let's say, for example, a church said, our goal is to improve our welcome.
Hmm.
So we want to hire a professional to design a new logo and to help us rebrand. We also
Hmm.
want to pay for new sign inserts and new signage on our property. And that'd probably spend all of that,
Hmm.
25,000. Is that something that they would pay for?
I believe so. Those are thematically related, and that's what they're looking
Hmm.
for. You can use multiple resources as long as you have one theme. And so I think that those are expenses that would be approved, but they do want you to reach out and have a conversation with them before you
Hmm.
apply. And if they don't like one of those, they will tell you and say, you could do A, B, and C, but not D, find something else. So they're so easy to work with. It's a wonderful place.
I've noticed that Center for Congregations, I've known them for a long time. They are wonderful.
They are.
They will go out of their way to help you write
Hmm.
it so that
Hmm.
they will accept it.
Yes.
They they love the churches and the
Yes.
ministries of Indiana, and they're just so incredibly helpful. And they'll have open conversations. You can lay all your cards on the table,
Right.
and they will too. They're very, very open-hearted, good people. Now, they're not going to give the money away without any restrictions. They're not going to be careless, and they shouldn't be, and
Hmm.
they won't be. And I think that's wonderful. But Lily and the Center for Congregations really does love Indiana.
Hmm.
They are Hoosiers,
Hmm.
and they love this state. Now they give beyond that, but
Hmm.
they primarily focus on Indiana. And what a great thing for us to have in our backyard.
Absolutely. I wish there was a center for congregations in every state. I've said that many times. It's a real
I know,
blessing. Yeah, it's a real
I
blessing for
know.
churches.
Many of my district counterparts would love to have something like that in their state.
Hmm.
Just even for the sabbatical thing that they offer. Have you ever helped a
Hmm.
pastor write a renewal grant?
No, but I have worked with churches who have done them in the past successfully, and I
Oh,
think they want that to be very they want that one to come from the congregation. Like they really don't encourage having grant support for that particular grant because they want to hear from the congregation. So I mean, it's something that a grant writer could help organize, but the writing really needs to be organic on that one and come from the people.
and as it should. When it comes to a sabbatical, you
Hmm.
don't want a pastor taking off 3 to 6 months and people don't really understand it or buy into it or think it's very good.
Exactly.
You could not have very many people left when you came
Right.
back.
Right.
But if it's done right, I've seen it done right and done
Hmm.
well, and it can be incredible,
Yes.
especially if a pastor has served, 20 years, 25 years in a place
Hmm.
or has been in the ministry that long. And they could just use not only a break, but some time to just pray and listen
Hmm.
to the Lord. I
Absolutely.
did a little bit of a sabbatical a number of years ago, and something I learned things from that that I never thought I would I would learn. Things that I never expected to happen on my sabbatical. And one of them was I did not know that I would be able to experience a, a Jesus and Greg only kind of experience for a while,
Hmm.
where I'd been Jesus and Greg the pastor
Mm. Mm.
for a long time.
It's a big
And
difference.
just pulling the pastor component off,
Hmm.
I'm not doing anything like that. It's just me and Jesus. It's so incredibly valuable. It's an incredible gift for a minister to just reconnect with Jesus, not as in vocationally, but just as my savior,
Wow.
right? And that was incredible. And then another thing, it gave me incredible clarity just to pull away. There were things that I did not know how to figure out. There were things that I didn't even see. And when I was away on my sabbatical, just praying, reading, working on things that I wanted to work on, taking hikes in the woods, and then things clicked
Mm,
in ways that I don't know I would have. I don't know that I would have been able to have gotten that. So there are things I think that will happen in a sabbatical that are incredibly valuable to a church. And if they can see the value in it, this is not just like some prolonged, uh, extravagant vacation or
hmm
something.
hmm
This is very strategic. And if they want to get involved in that, they can look online at the Center for Congregations,
hmm
um, and this is handled through um, Christian Theological Seminary in Indianapolis.
hmm
Um, and they do informational meetings every year on site where you can learn about how to write a successful proposal. They're very competitive,
hmm
but
as opposed to the Center for Congregations Resource Grant, which is not competitive.
right. Maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit. What are we talking about when we say a grant's competitive or it's not competitive?
That's a great question. In a competitive grant, you've got a whole bunch of other people applying for it, and there's
Hmm.
only going to be a certain number who are awarded. In a non-competitive grant, if you follow the instructions and submit your application, you will be awarded funding.
Yeah, and in all those cases, you really have to make sure that you're writing well and that you're communicating well, as if it were competitive. But the pressure is a little bit more when you know that you've got other people that are bringing their A game to this.
Right. That you're going to be one out of 500 applicants or, one of five out of
Oh,
1,000. Yeah.
yeah, and these sabbatical renewal grants, they call them, can be incredibly competitive. There are a lot of pastors that would like to do it.
Mm, I can see why.
Yeah, but at the same time, they're not going to pay for a pastor to be gone 3 weeks. They say it very frankly. We don't think 3 weeks is long enough to do
hmm
what we want to achieve.
hmm
And if a pastor said, "Well, what I want to do is I just want to go to Europe and preach. I want to preach all the time." They'd say, "Well, no, we're not going to do that because you preach now,
Right.
and the renewal wants you to take time off from preaching.
hmm
So we don't want you visiting all of our missionaries in Europe and wearing yourself out. The whole point is for you to say, hey, I've always wanted to learn to paint and bird watch, and I've always wanted to live in the Cotswolds. So I'm going to go live in the
hmm
Cotswolds for 3 months, and I'm
hmm
going to take painting classes, and I'm going to paint birds."
hmm
Now, that's not something I want to do, but that does sound like a really incredible trip.
Yes, it
Yeah.
does. And
Yeah.
and doesn't will they pay for your family to come with you if you're going
Yeah.
someplace? Okay.
They will. And they also want you to build into it a renewal for your congregation. So they will pay for your interim pastor.
That's right.
And they will also, so the church continued to pay their pastor while he's gone. And then they will pay for an interim pastor. And then also, they will give you money in your budget for the tax because it's taxable, the
Mm,
part that goes
that's
to you. And they will also pay for things that will bring the church through a renewal process of their own.
really
Yeah.
like what would that be?
I'm not quite sure what it would be, but I think that would be an incredible thing to investigate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I hope some churches will look into that grant as a result and win funding from that because that sounds like a truly transformational opportunity for pastors.
Yeah. Yeah. And for the church.
Hmm
So their thought is if it's planned out well and the church is behind it and the church leaders, the elders are on board and you have a healthy plan, you can transition into the sabbatical and transition back out of the sabbatical, and everybody will be renewed. Everything will be stronger. That's the
Mm.
idea.
Mhm.
And I've heard them doing very large grants, tens and tens of thousands of dollars, so that the minister can go somewhere and get away, turn their phone off. So that can be incredible if
Mhm.
they want to look into that. Well, this has been a very good conversation, Christine.
I've
I
really
have
enjoyed it.
I have a feeling you could write a pretty large book on this topic.
Maybe medium
Yeah,
size.
yeah. There's so much more I'm sure we could cover. And if people want to learn more, they can call you or
Yes.
email you. We're going to have your contact information on here at the end of this call, and make that available, and also some other resources. And I would encourage people to do it, to reach out to you and call you and see how you can help them. I know recently you helped some churches with some FEMA grants. You helped
Mhm.
our district with one, and you did a great job with that.
Thank you.
And I would just say, if they want help, they should just reach out to you and call you. I think it would be incredible.
Thank you, Pastor Greg. That's very kind of
Yeah.
you. For the church who doesn't know what to do next, excuse me, on my website there is a little screening tool for grant readiness. So if you don't even
Hmm.
know if your church is grant ready, that's on there. And there's also a blog article that's a thoughtful introduction to grant funding for churches that talks about some of the same things we talked about today. Just what are the core components of getting ready and how to think about grants. So I pray that that's a useful resource for churches too. Thank you
Yeah.
so much,
Thank you so
Pastor
much.
Greg.
Thank you. This has been a great conversation.
I've enjoyed it. Thank
Yeah.
you.